Okay, so we're diving deep into some tips today for speaking English more confidently, especially when you want to express your opinions clearly, really get your point across.
And what we're looking at isn't just for people learning English either. This is about those subtle things, the nuances of how we use language that even native speakers can sometimes, trip up on.
Totally. It's like we know what we mean, but those words don't always come out right, especially in the heat of the moment, right?
Exactly. And this script we're going over today, it's designed for like level 4 English learners. So it's really practical stuff.
Yeah.
But man, there are some gems in here I wish I'd known like years ago.
Right. So what's the approach here? What makes this deep dive different from just like Googling a list of phrases or something?
Well, for starters, it doesn't just give you the phrases. It digs into the why behind them. Like how even a slight change in wording can completely change how your opinion is received.
Oh, I like that because like saying I believe versus as far as I'm concerned, those both express opinions, but the vibe is totally different.
Right. One's much stronger. The other leaves space for other people to chime in. And knowing when to use which, that's key.
It's like choosing the right tool, right? You wouldn't use a hammer when what you really need is a scalpel.
Perfect analogy. And that's especially important for someone learning a new language because, well, there are all these unspoken rules.
Totally. It's like learning to navigate a whole new culture, not just the words.
Exactly. And those little nuances, they can make you or break you, especially when you're trying to express yourself. Put your thoughts out there.
It's about building that confidence, that fluency, so you're not like second-guessing every word. And one thing I noticed this script seems to focus on is disagreeing well, which, let's be honest, is a skill in itself.
Oh, for sure. And they actually talk about this thing called the sandwich method. Have you ever heard of that?
It rings a bell, but yeah, maybe a little refresher wouldn't hurt.
So the sandwich method, it's like when you got to disagree with someone, but you don't want to, make it a whole thing.
Yeah.
You kind of sandwich your disagreement between two more positive statements.
Okay, so it's about how you say it, not just what you say.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can see that being super useful at work or even with family, right? Like trying to keep things civil at holiday dinners, that sort of thing.
Exactly. And this script, it weaves that strategy right into the phrases they suggest. Like instead of just blurting out, I disagree, you could say, I see your point, B-U-T.
Oh, I see. So you're acknowledging the other person's perspective first. Like, hey, I hear you, but it's like you're building a bridge instead of a wall.
Exactly. And that can make all the difference, especially, when you're trying to have a productive conversation, not just like shout each other down.
Right. It's about keeping that dialogue open. But what about those times when you do need to disagree more strongly? Does the script cover that too?
Oh, yeah, it does. And this is where understanding the tone, the level of formality, comes in handy. Like in a casual conversation, you might say, I'm not so sure about that, but in a more professional setting.
You'd probably want to say something a little more, I don't know, official sounding.
Right. Like, while I respect your opinion, I'm inclined to disagree.
Ooh, that's good. It's still respectful, but you're generally not mincing words either. So it's about matching your language to the situation, being adaptable.
Exactly. And what I really like is this script doesn't just give you a list of phrases. It actually shows them in action, in these mini dialogues.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to ask about that. Because it's one thing to like memorize a phrase, but hearing it used naturally, that's got to be way more helpful.
It's like night and day.
Yeah.
Instead of just telling you what to say, the script shows you. You get to see how these phrases actually work in a real conversation.
It's like getting a little sneak peek, a fly-on-the-wall perspective on how to use this stuff in real life. Almost like you're eavesdropping on a masterclass in conversation.
Exactly. And speaking of masterclass, how about we try out some of these phrases ourselves, really put them to the test?
Oh, I'm totally down for that. Let's do it. All right, so let's set the scene, right? Say we're at a coffee shop, just having a casual chat about, I don't know, the future of transportation or something.
Yeah, I like it.
And I turn to you and I'm like, man, I am convinced self-driving cars, that's the future. They're going to revolutionize everything, how we commute, travel, the whole 9 yards. So how would you respond to that if you, maybe see things a bit differently?
That's interesting. I do think they have potential, don't get me wrong, but revolutionize everything. I'm not totally sold on that yet. There's still a lot of things to figure out, like, will people even trust them, And the infrastructure, we're a long way from that being ready.
Okay, yeah, I get that. Those are definitely hurdles. But wouldn't you agree that the benefits, like imagine way fewer accidents, no more traffic jams. That's got to count for something, right?
Oh, for sure. Those are huge pluses. I can't argue with that. It's a tricky one because there are strong arguments on both sides. Maybe you won't be like, bam, overnight, everything's different. Maybe self-driving cars, they'll just sort of become more common gradually. So we'll have both for a while, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Human drivers and the autonomous ones.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point, actually. I hadn't thought about it like that, that gradual shift. See, this is what I love. This script isn't just giving you ways to say your opinion. It's making you think about the whole conversation more deeply.
Exactly. It's like learning these phrases is one thing, but then you start to pick up on these other skills, like how to really listen and respond thoughtfully. That's where it gets really interesting.
It's like it's giving you a crash course in how to have a good argument, you know, a productive one. Oh, and speaking of communication, one last thing before we wrap up. This script, it focuses on what we say, but we all know, like body language, that's a whole other language.
Oh, tell me about it. Your tone of voice, your facial expressions, even just like if your arms are crossed or not, they could totally change how your message comes across, even if you're saying all the right words.
Right. It's like having two conversations at the same time, one with what you're saying and one with how you're acting, and they better match. Right?
100%. And especially when you're still getting comfortable with the language, those nonverbals, they can be super helpful. Sometimes a smile, a nod, it can say way more than words ever could.
Totally. Well, this has been fascinating, you know. We started talking about a script for English learners, but honestly, I think we've all learned something about the power of language in any language.
It just goes to show communication, it's an art form, and we're all still learning every day.